Hi, Kate Floss, citizen reporter, citizen journalist, citizen lawyer, citizen protester, citizen everything. My iron's there. I shouldn't have that there. Never mind. What I'm going to be talking to you today is that we have been talking about these common law groups, these common law courts that even legitimate, so-called legitimate lawyers are turning up to and telling the people to follow, and basically they're getting everybody to follow the wrong laws. Why have you been fighting for 3 years and you're not getting anywhere? Because they've been leading you around the cat chasing its own tail. That's what the psychological warfare is, to get the cat to chase its own tail and see how long you can keep them chasing around this tail and not get anywhere. And this is what these common law things have done to you. Now, they've been hitting our native tribes in our Commonwealth countries. They've been hitting them hard. And these people are very susceptible to lies and misinformation. Now, I'm just going to try my best to put everybody back on the right path. Now, we do actually, in fact, have common laws that you can use in the court and you can win. How do you know if you're going to win or not? Because nobody's tried it. But anyway, I want to show you this one presently. There's protests. Everybody knows that there's protests in Parliament in New Zealand and at the parliaments in Australia and Canada, the truckers convoy, which I all think is on the one hand, I'm saying, yes, we need to protest. On the other hand, I'm saying that the police just did a livey and telling people that they wanted all the cars moved off the streets in New Zealand because they were blocking the streets. And apparently they're calling people influencers. So influencers, now some influencers are not good influencers and some influencers are good influencers. I'm going to call myself an influencer, and and what is my influencing that I'm doing? I'm influencing everyone to follow the Commonwealth law that you were born to, follow the rights and God's law and the Majesty's law that you were born to. Now, one of the things that the tribes have been doing and the common law courts is issuing these letters, these mandates. We're going to have a look at one now today. I see, I'll put it up on the screen for you. Right, oh, where is it? I've done the wrong one. Right, here you go. So this here is one of the tribes. What some of the tribes have been doing have been claiming that they own parts of New Zealand that has never been established in the court of law. And now the United Nations is doing their decolonisation movement. And I'm here to tell you, this decolonisation movement is nothing more than a corporate land grab. They're taking all of our resources, putting it in the hands of the leaders of the tribes, and then they're making negotiations with the leaders of the tribes and taking all of those lands and putting them into, from my limited knowledge, the American corporation. So this whole decolonisation movement is to bring down the Commonwealth. Now, here's one of the letters from one of these tribes, and this is no different from the common law courts. He says, a trespass notice has been served on Parliament today by the Ngāti Tama as the undisputed owners, occupiers of the Parliament grounds. Now, let me just tell you something here. Those Parliament grounds are public land. That's public land that was negotiated hundreds of years ago. He's saying that he's got the right to give you the permission to protest there. This has been initiated under the Te Ture Whenua Maori 1993, sections 144 and 20. Now, I haven't gone and looked at that, but I really don't care. It's public land and everybody has a right to be there. Parliament is now formally trespassing on these grounds. I am told that this trespass notice has been acknowledged by the Office of the Speaker of the House. Now, here's where everybody trips up, you see, because it is quite interesting where they say that it has been acknowledged. Well, where is it? Here, it has been acknowledged. Acknowledged doesn't mean that they agree with it. Acknowledged just means that they've seen the document and they accept that you as an individual have the right to give them this document expressing your grievances. The acknowledgement doesn't say that your grievance is correct or not. It just says that we've seen it. So whenever these common law courts are putting out these documents, they're saying it's been acknowledged by the Prime Minister, it's been acknowledged by the Ombudsman, it's been acknowledged by the police. All they're saying is, yes, I have looked at it. That's it. That's all it means. Everyone, he says, on the ground of Parliament is asked to hold their position and maintain a peaceful vibe while government legal teams have an opportunity to look at this. Listen to me, mate. Ngāti Tama, you don't have any power over me or anybody else down at the grounds. Everybody there is of their own free will. Everybody's got a right to be there. It's public land. We don't have to ask your permission. We don't have to ask Parliament's permission. We don't have to ask anyone's permission. It is public land. Please don't, everyone on the ground is asked to hold their position and maintain their peaceful vibe. Well, that is a nice thing that he's saying, and I would say to everybody, yes, I agree, but it's not by his order. It's not because he owns the land, all right? He's saying this to you because you have that right as people born to New Zealand. If you're born to New Zealand, of New Zealand parents, that is public land. It belongs to you and you're allowed to be there. He's saying that the expectation is that the police will stand down as all protesters are there with express consent, you can't even spell there with express consent and endorsement of Ngāti Tawa. Now, this is not true. The people are there because it is their right to stand there on public land, not even in a protest. Just it is their right to stand on public land. It's not actually a right to protest, by the way. I'm going to tell you that in another video. But it is their right to stand on public land. Wellington's mayor has been instructed to stand down with respect to the vehicles on the streets. Now, I'm going to get to these vehicles on the streets in a minute. We'll come back to that, but I want to do something else right now. So, we can go along. Here's another one. This is from Carleen Lewis. Now, Carleen Lewis has been issuing, well, I won't say she's been issuing, but she's been promoting a lot of these common law things, and I'm just not sure. I don't know about Carleen, but I'm saying to you, Carleen, that we have got our God-given rights, and we're born with them from England, our subject rights, which we are subjects, S-U-B-J-E-C-T, and as subjects, we have our God-given rights as subjects. Now, these are given to all of us that are born to a subject status, and we're backed up by the Queen's armies. Here he says, another one, the trespass notice has been served on Parliament today by Ngāti Tama as the undisputed owners and occupiers of, is it the same one, of the Parliament grounds? I think it's a little bit the same. Now, and as I say, they are not the owners. This is public land, and if they were the owners, nobody would be permitted to be standing on there, all right? Because nobody got permission from anyone. They got permission from God to stand on God-given public land. This is not privately owned. It's not owned by any of the tribes. It's not even owned by Parliament. It's owned by the public. So we all have the right to stand there. Something to do with that. I don't know what that's. And it's been, I think it's the same thing. So this is by Carleen that's been sent this. The next one. Here's another one. This is Ngāti Tama, and this is by Tuffy Churton. Tuffy Churton's going around telling everybody that he's got the power over them and over the... Tuffy Churton, you don't have any power of nothing. Nobody voted you in. Nobody said that you were the leader. So Trevor Mallard, they've sent this to Trevor Mallard, the Parliament grounds occupation. Now, please take notice that the occupation of Parliament grounds is sanctioned under the authority of Ngāti Tama Te Kat trust. Can't even say it. Listen, nobody needs to have the authorization. If there's any Maoris down there throwing their weight around, they've got no right to do that. They're not your owners, they're not your bosses, and they're not the owners of that land. It's public land, belongs to all of us. The Crown does not hold clear title to Parliament grounds, and the ownership is still to be resolved. Now listen to me. The Crown owns the title until you go into a Crown Court of Law or the Native Lands Court and you dispute that this is public land. Until you do that, it continues to be public land and everybody's allowed to be down there protesting if that's what they wish to do, as long as you're peaceful. As the Crown is fully aware, Parliament ground sits on the former Ngāti Tamaramu Pa site belonging to, he's saying, it belonging to Taringa Kuri. Kuri is a dog, by the way, our great-grandfather, so I'd be very careful about that. Usually in Maori language, when they use Kuri, there is this Kiri. It's called Kili. But this one here is Kuri, that means a dog. So, God the grandfather, I suppose. We look forward to discuss this matter further with you. Now, unfortunately, Parliament is buying into all these influences and believing that Parliament is believing that they should be negotiating with the influencers. But I dispute that. So now this is another letter by the actual trust that he's referring to. He's referring to the Ngāti Tama Te KL Trust is what he's referring to. And they're calling themselves, this is a letter from Tuffy Churton, who introduced himself as the Rangatira from Ngāti. Well, listen to me. Rangatira, each Rangatira only has power over their individual tribes if their individual tribes agree to it, all right? The Rangatira have no authority over New Zealand Parliament. They have no authority. They can put in their opinions, but they don't actually have authority. All the people born to New Zealand have the authority over Parliament by their God-given right. So these Rangatira, bless them because they do a lot of good work. Let's not discount them. But let's just put everybody in their place here. Tuffy Churton, you don't have any power over the people of New Zealand. The Ngāti Tama Te Keo Trust made an announcement that they saw that this was circulating widely among the protesters, and they saw that it was addressed to the Speaker, Trevor Mallard, and the letter said the convoy occupation was sanctioned under the authority of the Ngāti Tama Te Trust. His letter left some of the iwi, these are the tribal leaders, and Maori who traced their roots to Wellington, scratching their heads. Now you see here that she didn't say who owned the lands. She just said that they trace their roots to those grounds. Well, look, how about, all right, so these are all the letters, and I'm going to go to right. So, how do I get out of there? Right. So I'm going to go to, dearie me. A little bit of a mishap there. All right. So these letters are no different, actually, from the common law court letters that have been posted around, all these letters that have been posted around. They're all no different. And they don't have any power over you, and they don't have any power over Parliament. Now, Parliament is obliged, and the police are obliged, the courts are obliged that when you go to these places with one of those letters, that they will accept the letter and they will acknowledge the letter, but the letter has no power. There are some very, very, very extremely clever people writing these letters. And when they write these letters, if they were to put it into a correct legal court system, they would then have power. Now, here's another person that I'm going to dispute. So this is the lady here. This is from Stuff, okay? And she's come out and she said the leaders of Te Atua, she says that the organisers of the convoy failed to contact the tangata whenua, which is the family of the tribe, before arriving and taking over the streets of Parliament. Now, in the Maori system, where these leaders are telling you that you have to ask them if it's all right if you go and protest on that public land, if you want to follow them, because they like to respect their tribal leaders, and so that is a respect thing amongst their tribal leaders. But among the average population that are born to New Zealand, born of New Zealand parents, if you don't belong to any of these tribes, you don't have to contact them. And even if you belong to these tribes, you actually do not have to get any permission by any Maori leaders that you can be there on the public land. Okay? Now, if you want to go and get that permission out of respect, by all means go and do that. But by law, legally, you don't have to. It's public land. The leaders from Aotearoa in Wellington are totally distraught to see their treatment of the whenua. And this is what Les Mellish says. The whenua means the land. Well, it's not up to them because it's not their land, it's public land. The Tawa established gardens on the site where Parliament now stands. So, 3,000 years ago, anybody that made a garden on any piece of land, if you've got a picture that your great-great-great-great-grandparents planted a garden on a piece of land, apparently that means that you now have some kind of ownership or permission to govern over it or permission to oversee it. No, I'm sorry, you don't. This is public land. Just because you planted a garden there 2,000 years ago doesn't mean that you own it to this day. Otherwise, the land is extinguished to you after you die, and then it belongs to the next generations. Now, those next generations, they might not be of that kind of a blood. There might be someone like me that was born to New Zealand through 5 generations of hard workers. We own this public land. It's Crown land, and it belongs to all of New Zealanders that are born to New Zealand. The supported protesters coming to Parliament, Te Atua supported protesters coming to Parliament, which is a very nice thing, as they have done during the demonstrations against legislation that put the seabed in the foreshore and the springbok. But these protesters didn't even have the courtesy to talk to us. Now, this is where they're trying to enforce their tribal power that is given to them by the people that are in their tribes. This is where they're trying to enforce this on the public of New Zealand. And they're trying to say that we need to get their permission. We don't need to get their permission. We do need to we need to have the public's permission. This is public land. It belongs to everybody. So this lady, on the one hand, yes, she is correct. Tuffy Turton has got no right to speak on the tribe, on behalf of the tribes, and he's got no right to issue letters to Parliament telling them to stand down on behalf of the trusts. He doesn't have that. But Liz Mellish, you also don't have the power to tell any protesters that they need to have your permission to go and stand on the public grounds. What you do have the authority to do is to ask that tribal members respect the tribal customs and their tikanga law, and that they would talk to the tribal leaders and ask them their advice before going there. But this is not a law that they have to follow, but they do it out of respect and out of upholding their ancient customs. So that's why they do it. There is no such place as Aotearoa. I don't know why they keep calling it that. Only New Zealand has defined borders. Aotearoa has no defined borders. Therefore, it is not a place that exists in the world. It's not even on any maps. They're trying to get it on the map. Before you can get it on the map, the area has to be defined. The area of Aotearoa has never been defined, and therefore it is a non-existent place, so we can't be using that word. Here are the lovely protesters. Now, so it's not the official position of the trust. So now there's a battle. This is often happening now. There's a battle going to be ensuing between the trust and Tuffy Turton about who owns the mandate, so-called mandate, on this land. But I'm thinking this is kind of a deception, because they come out battling each other. The land is actually public land, and then when they get into the court battling each other, it then also drags in the issue about whether this is public land or not. And if it's not public land, then the battle ensues about which one of the tribes own it. Now, this has occurred at Aimahutu. This is occurring at Shelley Bay. This is occurring all over our areas. So it's quite a sneaky little thing that's going on here. I'm not trusting it. Now we're talking about the Port Nicholson Settlement Trust. There was a settlement. And here it clearly says, Ngāti Tama has no officially recognised claim to land near Parliament. It does not belong to them, doesn't belong to his grandfather. This is public land. Now, I'm just going to finish off with this last little bit that I am going to say to you. Under our 1688 Bill of Rights, the protesters down there, I'm going to show you, they often use that to tour, but what I'm going to show you is this law here. I don't know if you can see it. So this law here is called grants of forfeiture. Grants of forfeiture, that all grants are when the tribes want to sell their pure title land, they must first sell it to the Majesty. The Majesty will buy it in its pure title, right? And then the Majesty will sell that land, will give it and let it be sold through the Land Council as called a land grant. Now, this land grant is guaranteed. It can never be revoked by the tribes or by anyone. However, if the people that hold that land grant, they bought it with their paper title, if they want to sell it, they can sell it, and even the Majesty can buy it back. And if the natives want to get that land back, they can go to the Majesty and ask for their pure title back. And there's a bit of toing and froing and going here. And if the Majesty is able to get the grant back through purchase, then the Majesty will purchase that paper title back. And then negotiations will begin with the Maori about them getting their pure title back. They're not allowed to get all pure title back because Some lands have to be available to the public who have already come to New Zealand hundreds of years ago and are entitled to their little piece of the pie as well, because they built the roads and the hospitals and all of that. Now, under the forfeiture here, it says here, forfeiture of particular persons without conviction are illegal and are void. Now, this is where you get your right to protest. You don't actually have a right to protest, but if it's public land, the police and the government are not permitted to forfeit your person, your particular person, which means they're not allowed to stop you from going onto public land, right? However, you don't get to exercise your right whilst you trample on the rights of other people. This is what everybody is not being comprehending, and unfortunately the government is not informing you that yes, you have your rights, but other people have your rights. Now, their rights. You don't get to have rights and trample on another person's rights, because then you have violated their rights. And this is when the Majesty's Police and the Majesty's Army and the Parliament are allowed to arrest you because you have violated other people's rights, thinking that your rights are more important than theirs, right? So if you've parked your cars in the public street, you have a right to park your car in the allocated parking areas. And those allocated parking areas, so the government has a duty to allow a throughway to get to the various destinations of the country, and the government must protect that right, because if they don't protect that right, that comes under this, that there has been a forfeiture of the person by another person. So when your trucks and cars are blocking the thoroughfare, you are using your right, which is to be on public land, to trample on another person's right, which is to travel through the land to get to another piece of public land, because you have caused a forfeiture on that particular person where there was no conviction. That particular person did nothing wrong. So that is why the police have the right to arrest you, because the public, all right, votes in the Parliament to protect your common law rights are here. So common rights are rights that apply to everybody, right? So these rights apply to everybody, so they have to be very broad. They can't say this tribe has got this right, but that's going to trample on the rights of everybody else, but because they think they have more rights, then they get to trample on other people's. No, you don't. When you are if you look at your, originally we had the 1852 Constitution, and you have your tikanga law, which is customary law. The customary law, it does actually say in there, the second part of it says, you can exercise your customary law, your customary public rights. Everybody is entitled to customary law in their homes or on their private property. Everybody has this right. But when you go out into the public domain, you no longer are entitled to exercise only your customary law. You must also recognise the common rights of all the people, which comes under this. So as a tribe, if you forbid people from driving their car down the street, then you are interfering with their common law rights. And then that's when you're committing a crime, and it doesn't matter whether you belong to a tribe or not. You are not entitled as a tribe or as a protest group to trample on the rights of others while you proceed to lift your rights above the rights of others. So you must go and clear these cars from the street and put the cars into the designated areas. I'm told that there have been designated areas provided by the Parliament, as is their duty, to provide you with a place to park, okay? They should really be charging you for it so that they can see all of these police, that they're managing all of these protest rights, but once again, the rights of others are being trampled on because that is all being paid for by public money. Many people agree with the protests. I'm a person that agrees with the protests. I agree with the protests. I don't agree. I do believe that the COVID restrictions are trampling on our rights. They're trampling on our rights because there is certainly a forfeiture of persons when they order, saying this to Parliament now. It does say here that the subjects' liberties will be allowed, and it does say here that all of the ministers must strictly observe these. And it does actually say here that you cannot forfeiture of particular persons without conviction is illegal. That is lockdowns. That is preventing you from travelling outside of your home and going to public areas, going to parks, going to all these things. That is illegal, in my opinion. And so not only are the tribal leaders trampling on other people's rights, although I will give them this in their favour, they're trying to stop the Parliament and the government from also trampling, thinking that they have the right to trample on the rights of the public. So everybody is not following the Majesty's law, is what's happening. Nobody is. Now, in my opinion, the government are not. In my opinion, the tribal leaders are doing their best to stand up for the people and say to the people, hey, we're going to be here for you and we want to help you and we want to stop this from happening because we know the Parliament is doing wrong. However, what you need to do is start filing these documents in the courts of law. Go and use your 1688 Bill of Rights. That is upheld by the Majesty. Go and use that in the courts. But just issuing a letter saying, hey, stand down Parliament, hey, stand down police. No, this is not the correct way to do anything. So let's go and have a relook at how, and remember, everybody under the 1688 and under the Majesty, Her Majesty the Queen, everybody has rights, common law rights. These are our common law rights, and we need to fight for our common law rights. There are many rights, but none of them, there are only a few rights in the common law. I think there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. There are 26 rights, which aren't many. There are not many common law rights. And there is also a non-obstant right. It says non-obstant made void, which means that non-obstant means that Parliament has the right to override laws using things like the Health Act. But made void means that Parliament has the right to override laws, subordinate laws, yes. But in regards to these 26 rights here, Parliament, I'm sorry, you don't have any right whatsoever to override this because it is illegal. And so preventing people from leaving their homes, preventing people from attending the parks, that is a forfeiture of person without any conviction to them. And in my opinion, that is illegal. Preventing ministers here, preventing ministers from speaking out, whether it be about COVID or whether it be about whatever, whether it be speaking against a religious group and their beliefs. We are entitled to speak against them because of our free speech, and I believe that the Parliament is mistaken in their order for us to stop speaking. It is up to the public to decide for themselves and what is the government's role in stopping this kind of information. Well, their role is to make counteractive videos explaining to the people, like I am today with my very limited education, explaining to people why their assertions may not be completely legal or completely correct. That's the government's job, not to shut down free speech, not to prevent people from going about their way. So let's just continue to uphold our common law rights. There are 26 common law rights, 26 letters in the alphabet, and 26 letters in the alphabet, and 26 common law rights, all protected by the Majesty's armies. You see, we have armies behind these rights, proper armies. We're not using our rights in the correct way, and that's why you're failing, people. You're failing because you're not using your correct common law rights. All right, Kate Floss signing out. Fly the flag, and God save the Queen.